It's called meeting order, the city pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since no one has come tonight, do we have any letters or anything that we need to know? All right, thank you very much. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
I do not have.
All right, the mayor's report. Okay, well, welcome to everybody. It's nice to see faces that we haven't seen for quite a while. I'm always amazed when I go out with my mask on and you meet somebody and they say hello and you go, I wonder who that is. And but it is nice to see all of you here this evening. Thank you. Thanks for hanging in there through all of the Zoom meetings. In my opinion, less than a satisfactory way for us to meet and discuss the future and the current status of this community. So let's all stay well and safe and healthy. I also want to say a special thank you to the city staff who have continued to work on the behalf of the city through either in their home or in the office, City Hall, or in Public Works or in the Safety Center or wherever they are. Thank you for carrying on the business of this city. When we began this year, our goals were about how we want to grow, new projects before the city, furthering the vision of the arts. At that time, we had 2 restaurants that were very popular that are now closed. Other shops who have left town. Shop owners who have adjusted their open hours to try to stay in business. And then we talked about at one time what new projects could we dream about. That was when COVID-19 was just, we didn't even know about it in January. And now here we are in June. And now we are not only dealing with that, we are dealing with an incredible situation in our country after the murder of George Floyd. Our nation and our state are in turmoil over these things. And so what do we do as the elected leaders of Lindsborg? I know I feel very, where do we go? What do we do? We were about to embark on a new comprehensive plan. We had a discussion about that, I believe, in our last meeting or the meeting before, whenever. And should we go forward? Should we not go forward? But we are. And so with Shockey, which is the company that we have chosen, Lucas has reached out to them. And so as they are a company that is also trying to get their life together, we have not met with them yet, but hopefully it will be happening soon. And then we can figure out, hopefully with their assistance, what do we envision here? What is going forward? Tough times. One of the reasons that I was hopeful that we could meet in this format tonight is I really believe that face-to-face is more valuable in our discussions. I'm not expecting the world to be all figured out from each of you tonight, but I do hope that you will weigh in the various ways that you interact, either through your jobs, in your family, to say, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm thinking. Our community, as well as the country and the world, are so evolving. It's hard to get our head around this, but we do have to plan. So we are not just reacting to whatever is put our way. So I encourage all of you to please speak up. There are no wrong answers, but we do need to know why people in your ward elected you. All right, thank you. will not happen. But please look on your calendars and see where those are. All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Your second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Roxy?
Rebecca,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Kirsten,
Yes.
Wayne,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Emo.
Yes.
Consent agenda is approved. Is there any appointments?
There are no appointments.
No appointments.
Excuse me.
P and Z.
Nothing for planning and zoning.
All right, is there any old business?
No old business.
All right, under new business, public safety radio quotes, Chris. Oh, not Chris, Mike, sorry.
Good evening, Council. Today, I'm coming before you, for some of you who were on the council or remember, in 2018, you approved some purchases for radio equipment that the county is doing for a new radio system. That system is due to go online roughly August of 2020, so we're just around the corner. As I took over and started looking at what we have, I noticed that we did not have enough radios to meet the needs of public safety. So the new radio system, as I said, is set to go live here. When that occurs, the police department will not have any mobile radios, which means we won't have any radios in the cars, which is and should be our primary way of communicating with dispatch and other area units. On top of that, a portable radio does not have the same level of strength when you use it as a mobile radio. It's significantly less. Furthermore, as we looked into the radio system, we bought about 5 radios for EMS. And as you know from our EMS team, many of them are volunteers and they work 3 shifts, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so we have 5. So that's not enough to ensure that everybody who's going to be working throughout the day has enough radios. So in looking at what we need, we've come to the conclusion that we need to look at purchasing 4 of our mobile radios for the cars. Requested to look at I've looked at 3 different types of radio systems, got quotes, and I've come to the conclusion that what looks like it'd be best for what we need would be the Kenwood radio. Came in at the lowest bid at $11,923.08. The warranties on all the radios that we looked at are also the same. I also obtained a separate quote for the portable radios for EMS, looking for an additional 5 radios, which would get us to 10. That would bring our total complement again to 10, and no additional quotes were obtained because my concern when we go to our portable radios, we already have a significant amount, and to get a different radio system than what we currently have could create confusion between people who are using them, so I want to stay with what we already purchased, which is why I only got the 1 quote. And the quote for those 5 radios was going to be in the amount of $10,888.55. I'm requesting a motion to approve the purchase of the 4 Kenwood radios and the 5 Motorola portable radios for you tonight. And I'm open to any questions you might have.
So the motion is for total. You want total for,
I did it separately only because the quotes were separate. If you want, I can get a total for you.
You also have 2 different vendors
Correct.
as part of this quote, so you want those.
Probably-
It can be one motion, but you need to identify. I'm sorry.
I think I do it separate motions.
Okay.
so
One thing I want to mention, the quote we got for the mobile radios was through KCOM, which was the lowest of the quotes.
all right. So let's act on one of these at a time.
Okay.
All right. So the first one that you'd like us to act on is what?
Would be the purchase of 4 Kenwood Viking VM5000 mobile radios for the police department in the amount of $11,923.08.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
So getting the mobile radios, does it still allow PD, they will have portable radios as well that will be able to communicate?
Yes, sir. The portable radios, as you know, are equipped for an officer to use when they leave the car. They're still going to be dead spots that we could run when we use them, which is why the mobiles are so important, because a portable radio generally gives off about 5 to 6 watts when you use it, where the mobile radio gives off 50 watts. So it will increase our ability to speak more clearly and longer distances with dispatch and other units.
I guess what I was asking is just to make sure that officers are going to have portable radios that will be able, that are function with this new system.
Yes, they will
So
work,
the
they will
existing
work
ones
interchangeably.
will- Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion?
Well, the only question I have is, so in 2018 is when Person County signed this contract. This was something that, I understand you weren't here at that time, but as the city, we contemplated or we were aware that we were going to have to do this at some point when this became live, or how did it come
Yes.
about?
Yeah, it was included in the capital budget. The decision to go with the P25 system was 2018. The actual discussion started even before then. And if I remember correct, the portable radios that we got would work on the old system and the new system. So that's why for the police department, we went ahead and purchased when I say mobile, I'm sorry, portable radios. We purchased those so that could happen automatically when the system changed, because the timing was never on this date, we're pulling the trigger and we're switching. To get it matched up with our budget cycle didn't work. So that's why we purchased portable radios that were, I'll call it dual band, dual system is a better way to put it. We held off on the vehicles because of the expense, and you couldn't buy a mobile radio that could work on the old system and the new system. And that's why the purchase has been delayed for the vehicles.
Yeah, thank you. That was my question.
Yeah.
This was something that we were anticipating, it was just a matter of timing, and now is the time.
Yes, correct.
And will we have these by August?
We should.
We should. Okay.
We should have them here and installed by the time it goes live.
Any other questions? Discussion?
So the expenditure will run about $22,000, and there's total $40,000 budget, is that what? Because the fire department doesn't either.
Correct. There's 20,000 budgeted with the fire department, 20,000 budgeted for EMS.
Okay. Any other questions? Roxanne?
Ed,
Yes.
Kirsten,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes?
Mark,
Yes.
Eno,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Rick.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item.
The second motion would be to approve the purchase of 5 Motorola portable radios, equipment in the amount of $10,888.55 for the Motorola Solutions for EMS.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Everybody understand what you're voting on? Kind of? There's a lot of trust and I'm thankful to say that we have good department heads that we can trust, so.
Ms. Muriel explained it all, the information was sent, so.
There you go. All right, no further discussion?
Eno,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Rebecca, Lane,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Kirsten,
Yes.
Ed.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you so much.
Chris? Stockholm Estate Sewer and Street Infrastructure bids.
Yes, last Wednesday we had the bid opening for the first phase of the infrastructure, which is upon the developer to take care of that part of it. That includes the sanitary sewer system, and this is also using a lift station as part of this system. It includes all of the curb and gutter and the street paving, as well as a little bit of sidewalk and some stormwater drainage. There were 2 contractors that submitted bids for the project. Both of them were underneath the engineer's estimate. And so everything looked good at this point, so we're ready to proceed. So we're looking for a motion to approve the base bid from Votes Pargo Construction in the amount of $1,182,048.81 for Phase 1 sewer and streets for Stockholm Estates, and that is contingent upon a negotiated completion date with the contractor and the developer.
Between those two entities.
Between those two entities, correct.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second? Moved and seconded, discussion.
Chris, on this, I'm not sure I've seen a map of how it's laid out, but as far as the storm water, which way does that run? Where does it go?
The very north part will go to the north and into the ditch on the north side along the trail. The majority of it will go to the south and will more so to be developed in the next two phases with a storm drainage system. And actually, part of this will go that way too, but the very north end of that is going to go into the drainage ditch and then flow to the east.
And there is a detention pond, excuse me, a detention pond located at the southeast corner of that property.
I just thought, when it's fully developed, there's going to be a lot of impervious streets, homes, sidewalks.
Yes.
So it's going to really increase the amount of runoff in that area.
And that is the reason for the storm retention pond at the south end. And that's where the majority of that will go to.
The calculated capacity based upon the storm event, what is
Yes.
that?
Yes. I believe it was a 20-year event. That's what it's based on.
So in the phases of building out there, the north border is first? Or
The north, it's three phases. So the first phase is on the north end. That'll be 1/3 of it. That will include all of the streets and everything within that north part of the development. And then as it moves to the next phase, a small amount of streets will be extended. And then in the third phase, the final streets will be extended. So I guess from a development standpoint, there's many ways you can do it. This way brought the development in and we'll have the entire north half developed, so it will look how whole they want it before we proceed with the next phase, rather than doing it from a side-to-side design. I think it kind of comes down to what lays out best for infrastructure in a design concept and how it works for building that out. This works fairly well for this design and the way the utilities are going to be installed.
So a question, Wells Fargo is a county road or a city?
That is a county road.
Okay. And so will the ditches have to stay?
The ditches will remain as they are right now.
Okay.
Uh,
So, I mean, there has been conversation that with increased usage of that road and whatever other development is out there, Bethany Home doing their thing and whatever, what will happen to that road? Will it be widened? Will it be whatever? But dealing with the runoff that right now is going through ditches, that will always be a part of whatever it is that we're going forward. Is that right?
I would envision that, correct.
I would say that's the current plan. I would never say forever.
Forever, yeah.
I would imagine as part of the comprehensive plan, traffic patterns on that particular road will be looked at and how best to develop it out into the future. But to answer the question of what is the plan, right now, open ditches. Yes.
the alternate option on here, what was the purpose of that? Who requested the alternate option?
That was something that I believe the developers looked at with the engineer, just as another approach to do the paving. In some ways, I think maybe that is a better approach in getting that deeper base and that rock material in there. However, the paving being thinner would not be, for this first phase where it's going to have so much additional traffic, I think this is the best way. But I think they had that as an option, as possibly looking at it in another way. But the engineering report that came back from the soils test showed that the soils were very good for building the roads on and the streets on. And I think that the engineer is very comfortable with how this is laid out and satisfied with what the reports showed.
I see that there's no committed firm start date. Is there any anticipation or expectation of when that might be?
The problem has come up because of the pandemic. Everybody from concrete suppliers that build the manholes to even some of the things we're finding with the parts that we need to do the electrical infrastructure and the water infrastructure. Because of the pandemic, plants shut down. They didn't have production going. So we're finding that the availability of materials is kind of an unknown almost at this point. We've heard a lot of 8 to 14 weeks. I know they're talking 14 weeks with the sewer manholes. That's the first part of the process that goes in. So the contractor is working with the developer to try and come up with a firm start date and a firm completion date. I don't know how that's going. I know it's probably going to be the end of July, sometime in August before they start, but I don't know that for sure, and that's just my guesstimate, just based on conversations.
And part of that motion includes an agreed upon negotiated start date between the developer and the contractor. So we wouldn't, while we would approve the amount and the company this evening, we wouldn't execute the contract until we can submit that start and estimated completion date into that contract.
Any other discussion?
I have a sort of ancillary question, but I'll go ahead and ask it now. What's the number of houses in the first phase again?
I believe it's
52
around
lots.
52.
52 lots in the first phase.
Yes.
And so what, and anticipating timing for that, the whole first phase was, I mean, I know that's nobody can predict, but
The original proposal that the developer wanted was completion by September 1st. That's
I mean, inhabit, like, houses built, I meant like built out, yeah.
for the houses to
Yeah.
be, yeah, I don't know that that's,
I thought there was and what's the timing on the Bethany Drive? Like, I know that's hypothetical also, but the overpass removal, also hypothetical, like, I mean, what's the intersection there, I guess? Is there
Well,
one?
if life goes well and according to plan, we probably look in 2.5 years. That's getting the grant from United States Department of Transportation to do the engineering, and you go through the process of bidding, et cetera. So
Starting,
yeah.
because I think along with the drainage traffic control I mean, that intersection is starting to be kind of interesting today. I can't believe I'm saying that, but. Sorry, I can't
See, in that engineering in the grant application, it would also be addressing that particular intersection on how traffic's handled there. Because it's for Wells Fargo interchange and also for the overpass. And then we look at how,
How the two, yeah.
yes,
yeah.
intersect or work
Play
together.
off each other, Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, interesting. Sorry, I know it's kind of somewhat related.
I'm not sure if you noticed or what, but I was asked, the wheat that is on there is such a beautiful crop this year. Who's gonna cut that and who owns it? And I said,
Well, the development company owns it. I'm sure they'll contract, that's volunteer wheat, that's not a planted field. So,
I almost was gonna ask that.
That's volunteer.
Very hot topic at my house.
Hey, but I've been asked, yeah, I've been asked a
Yeah.
number of times by
So-
people and I said, I don't know.
That field's never had a crop like that.
Oh, I've been by there and I've wondered the same thing.
yeah,
So it's just up to the developers, whatever they want to do.
they'll, I think after the conversation at bid opening, they are looking to harvest it, so
Every little bit helps.
every
right?
bit helps,
There
yes.
you go. All right. Is there any other questions? Okay, Roxy?
Emo,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Colleen,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Kirsten,
Yes.
Ted.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, Chris. Well, always looking for good news, and I think this is good news, so this is a good thing for us at this point in time. So, I'm sure there's not an executive session.
No executive session. Okay, turning it over to me, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Just go through some things real quick. Some are reminders, some are new. City buildings are still scheduled to be closed to public access until June 15th. Part of it is waiting on those items that we have on order. We now have orders with several companies for the same thing, so whoever gets it delivered first wins, and then we'll cancel the other orders. Installation of the sneeze guard in City Hall. The moratorium on utility disconnects expired May 31st. We have put out information in 2 utility billings, also the past due billings to those customers that are past due, letting them know that the moratorium is ending May 31st. Encourage them to contact City Hall so we can connect them with resources to get them caught up or to work out a plan. And then also there's been 2 postings on Facebook. As of Friday, I think there were, I can't even remember the number now off the top of my head, it was in the Friday report. Yeah, roughly 64,000 outstanding, and I can't remember the number of accounts. Unfortunately, out of those outstanding accounts, as of last Friday, no one had contacted us to work out any arrangements. So the next cycle for disconnects will be June 29th is when it's scheduled.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes, you may.
So the nut fund and tackle, they still are 2 separate things, even though tackle is.
Tackles administering, yes, they are 2 separate things.
Okay, so they're able to get into both of those?
Yes.
Okay.
There's also Churches United in Ministry that provides support. You know, they've extended and expanded the low-income energy assistance program through the CARES Act that some people may qualify for. So there are resources out there for people that can assist and help them get caught up. So
How many payers does that represent? You said, I mean, $64,000,
we bill about $250,000 a month on utilities. That's an average across the year.
so that's a.
Yeah, we
Can
did.
people apply multiple times for the fund, the nut fund help?
Yes. Thank you, Chief. Chief serves on the task force that evaluates and he represents the city on that, so.
But it wasn't very utilized in the beginning, was it? Have they had a lot of people ask for it?
It wasn't, but it's starting to progress.
Okay, but I would think just because people are gonna be, their situations haven't changed just because the longer they go unemployed, the worse their situation's gonna be.
Also, the waiver on late fees expires May 31st. From March through May, any past due accounts do not incur any late fees. Moving forward, they will. The grant application for the Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Grant Program has been submitted. We held the hearing last week. I know even before we had the hearing, we had one application in. We have some interest, so we applied for $300,000, which was approved by you, authorizing that. And the nice thing about it is, I know we have a few businesses right now because it's based upon the low to moderate income, household income within the employees of the business, not of the city. So the employers are having to survey their employees to make sure that their employee base qualifies as that low to moderate income, and at 51%, if that's how the business's employees are, then they will be eligible for that. We don't know the timing of when we're going to hear back. We believe we're kind of on the front end of this thing because we try to get the ball rolling. We got the hearing scheduled as quick as we could get it scheduled. I mean, we had the notice to the paper that afternoon after the webinar ended at 3 o'clock. So we've been trying to get in the front of the line in this thing to hopefully provide some assistance there. Municipal court will resume effective tomorrow. It will be via Zoom conference app. If we have all of our sanitation protocols in place, we will resume face-to-face in municipal court on June 16th. We may modify how we allow people into the courtroom, but that's the tentative schedule right now. One of the things we talked about was recreation. There are 14 different activities currently scheduled, from art to sports to outdoor activities to plane building. Just to give you an idea, twirling, outdoor recreation and fun and games, youth tennis, youth baseball and softball clinics. It's called Flips and Tricks, which is beginner tumbling, junior golf, origami and paper crafts, printmaking, polymer clay classes, art extravaganza, STEM, airplane model building, paper mache class, beginning embroidery, paper making. That is how things are right now. I know Beth continues to work on other classes. She posted the information, I know, on Facebook this evening. Her goal is to get it out either this evening or tomorrow, so that has been done as she continues to work on other classes. We've been very fortunate. The community's really stepped up to help provide offerings in the program, so we're excited about that. Revenue projections, it's in your packet. I'm going to go through it real quick. In fact, I'm just going to hit the high points. I'm not going to go through each item. In 20, the first time I spoke to you about this was projecting about a $900,000 shortfall in 2020 in revenue and about $1.2 million in 2021. I've revised those projections to about $746,000 shortfall in 2020 and $779,000 in 2021. The reason for the modifications, The sales tax that we received in May was actually much stronger than I would have anticipated, or not would have, than I anticipated, which was a good thing. I'm not sure it's going to continue at that pace, but I still think it's an indicator that there's more local buying going on than we had anticipated. Also, in terms of property tax revenue collections, I had forecasted about a 10% shortfall this year and 12% next year, and that was based upon increase in delinquencies and also decline in values. I do know statewide that the first half property tax revenue collections has been at 95%. So I adjusted ours from 10% for 2020 to 7%, which seems to be our delinquency rate right now. Held that again for 2021. In terms of the enterprise funds and the revenue there, looking at some declines, that's based upon comparing prior years to where we are so far this year. Of course, you know, we could have a hot summer and all of a sudden our water and our electric use jumps, but that's just kind of a calculating on an annual average of where we'd be, about 11%, or I'm sorry, 11% this year and 12% next year. Part of that is predicated on the college and the school district and whether they resume full activities or in-class sessions. If they're not in class, then the decline will probably be less than what we've projected here, or I projected here. One last item is 2021 budget. We need to look at a date for Mark's favorite time. Capital improvement meetings. We have reviewed really for the 5 years when we talked about what we were looking at in terms of removing out of the budget or the capital budget for 2020 to get closer to what our projected revenue shortfall is. So with that, does everybody have a calendar with them? And June? Because we will look at the capital budgets and then in a separate meeting look at operations and maintenance, which would probably be early July.
I got a lot of free time, so.
I was just gonna say, you're getting early on the resuming activities process, so. Getting hot.
Let's see here. I don't know what everybody's weekend.
Because Mondays work the best.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't,
It's all the same.
okay. Our next council meeting is the 15th,
Yes.
so 8 or 22.
I'm good either way.
8 or 22 for people?
Are we resuming study sessions?
We probably will. I'm pretty non-committal right now because, well, for instance, the legislature meets Wednesday. There's been vetoes of some bills that passed both chambers fairly decidedly. It all comes down to whether the legislature wants to score more political points or whether they want to get out on the campaign trail. And because all Senate, all House members are up for re-election, as long as they're in session, They cannot receive campaign contributions. They cannot campaign. But by the same token, once they're in session, they can be in session as long as they want to be to do whatever business they want to do. Maybe have a tentative idea of what a projected schedule is going to be maybe tomorrow afternoon. So depending on what, and a lot of it, the original intent is to look at the governor's emergency declaration and the executive orders. But business doesn't have to be limited to that. I know there's already committee meetings scheduled tomorrow. So that's why it become non-committal, because every time we think we're hitting the bullseye, it gets close and then they go like this, and we miss it.
How about the 22nd? Next Monday might be a little smoother to get your act together, right?
Well, I don't feel like I had my act together all year, at least since March.
Does the 22nd work for people?
Right now it does.
Right now,
Works for
does.
me.
Okay. Is that all right with you?
Yes, that works for me.
6:30.
Yes,
Say 6:30.
yes. And we will send out details.
Would that be here again, most likely?
More than likely, again, kind of non-committal, probably here. I was just looking at my latest one, so see if there's anything else that. No, that is all I have. Thank you.
Okay, I had a question posed to me. Swimming in the river. Evidently, there has been some. Chief, do you know the rules and regs about that?
I don't know enough to give you a specific answer. My
Sorry,
understanding
I should
is
have
not.
asked you.
That's okay.
What?
That's my brief understanding.
All right, what does anybody know?
I know it happens every year.
I know,
I mean, it happens every year.
is that something
I've
that
said
we
I was
want
one
to,
of those
is it
culprits.
posted down there? Huh?
I have to say, I was one of those
I
culprits.
know, we all were, but I mean, it's.
No,
it's-
not this one, that water
Yeah,
was
not doing it.
Well, it didn't used to be as gross as it's now. I mean, it's being used, and so, but I guess that the question is it posted down there, no swimming?
I'd have to go a little closer. I've been down there a few times. I haven't seen any signage that says that, but I can,
Okay.
yeah, I can say for certain.
It used to be, I don't think it is anymore.
You can always tell a bunch of kids with really dirty clothes on. Well, anyway,
I will look into it.
if you would, please, thank
Is
you.
it a health concern too? I mean, but is the water bad enough that it's,
I know nothing about the water quality. Rick, is the water quality good?
Depends on what you're using it for.
Yeah.
How's it compared to Canopolis?
Where do you think it comes from?
Yeah. But if you can swim in Canopolis, then it's probably the same quality of water.
except the little stuff clean here?
I'm not gonna say anything about any neighboring communities.
Well, there are, with kids not having a lot to do, and it's it's water, and it's getting warmer. And a parent asked me, and I said, you know, if I had to guess, I'd say, no, it's not okay, but I don't know that for sure. So if you can find out, maybe we can post it, whatever, okay.
How deep is it?
How deep is it? Chris, you ought to know, you're a kid that grew up here.
2 to 3 foot, maybe.
Oh, okay, so it's.
I mean, it's
Depends
up
on
a little
rainfall,
bit.
depends on how much
Yeah,
they
it's
release
cheaper
out of
because
Canopolis.
how much it's running
It's deeper, right? It's about 7,700 CFS, 7,800 CFS yesterday.
What is that?
Because they're letting out at.
Cubic feet a second. 800 cubic feet a second. And that's what's being released from Canopolis. That doesn't include any tributaries.
But that's the gauge here in Lindsborg.
Well, that's one that's working.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a website. you can
USGS.
go to, yeah, the
Does it have
USGS
water
website.
quality on it?
They do have water quality, but it's not instantaneous. It's just whenever they take it.
It's cleaner downstream of the wastewater plant.
I've always heard that, yes. Right.
Which wastewater plant?
So the suggestion though is to try to make a signage so that people can't swim in the river. Is that the way you're?
Well, I mean, if that is the rule, that you cannot. And,
Yep.
Bill, would that be by ordinance
It
or?
would have to be by ordinance as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not aware of any. There could be one, but I don't know. And of course, that would only apply to the portion of the river that's within the city limits, because once you get, well, actually,
That,
it wouldn't even apply to that, because it would only apply in a situation where the city owned property on both sides, which would be the Old Mill Park.
So that's,
That's city limits area. But anything, say, below the old railroad bridge, South Africa River is in the city limits.
Some of it doesn't have to really do with water quality, but it's hidden obstacles, trees, rubble, all that stuff that's in there.
But then you're kind of raising the question, if we have a responsibility to try to deal with that, do we have a responsibility to try to open the pool as soon as possible, regardless of cost?
I wouldn't see how one correlates to the other, to be honest with you. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but because some people use poor judgment, how does that reflect that we should open the pool?
The way I'm
You're gonna
kind of
have poor
looking at
judgment,
it
you're
is-
gonna have people that are gonna do that even if the pool is open.
And you're gonna have people that are gonna do that even if it's illegal. I mean, people have done it for 100 years around here.
That's correct. Not the last 100 years, but
Well, it doesn't sound like it's even illegal.
Yeah. I mean,
I really kind of think it is.
But there at least should be, no lifeguard signs. To protect us or whatever, especially on city property, there'll be something that says, there's no lifeguards here.
Well, it's not our property. That's county
That
property.
belongs to the
That's,
county.
well,
Yeah.
Because the county thinks that's signs. Okay, and the only other question that I was asked by text was, who is the city judge?
Gary Price.
Okay, and if somebody wants to get in contact with him, there is a contact number on our website.
I don't know for sure. I would say call City Hall and we can provide the appropriate information.
Any other others?
yeah, I have a question. Greg, you mentioned in your report that, and I know that Beth has worked on multiple types and various recreation. We've had a lot of struggles with trying to see if we could keep things open or keep certain activities going forward, and then putting it off for a while and then determining we're not able to do that. With the closure of the pool that we voted on last council meeting, is with some of the other activities moving forward, do you think there's any opportunity for some of the kids that were going to be lifeguards or have jobs at the pool to maybe be involved in some of the other activities that Beth is working on, or do you know?
Well, like the youth tennis clinic, I know Tracy Baker was going to reach out to several of those to see if they would help with that. I know that's one of the things Beth has talked about, is seeing if some of those youth that were going to be guards wanted to help. Where that is in process, I have no idea. I don't know the answer to that part. I know that was part of her intent.
I think, closing the pool was not taken lightly by anyone here. It was a very difficult decision, I know for myself. And it's, twofold, at least in that, providing some jobs for the youth of the community is one part of it, but then the fact that, kids don't have a swimming pool or the community doesn't have a swimming pool for the summer is a really tough thing. I don't know with the changes that have been made since then and some of that now being delegated to the community for their own decision. I don't know if that is a dead issue or that can be discussed again or revisited. I don't know. I've had people ask me about it, and probably a lot of members of council have. I was told that Heston, for example, has started swim practice today for their swim team. They anticipate moving forward with opening their pool in June. I think most pools probably in the area are closed, but I guess my question would be, can that be revisited, or is that final? I think Emo mentioned something about opening the pool again as well.
Well, I'm going to answer it. That's up to you as council.
When could it even open? It seems like the direct changes that are, whoever that's talking to, is that when can it open? Can it open whenever? I mean, the Heston answer, Blaine, is that's ran by a rec commission. Their rule is, not to say that, so theirs ran by a rec commission, and yes, they do want to open it. But I don't know if we can, I don't know what the days we can even open it. Is it June 1st?
Well, when we were originally planning to open the pool, it was going to be during the phase-out program, which was going to start July 1. With the governor moving the responsibility to the counties, the phase-out begins June 23rd, and specifically, well, for instance, we're in phase 2 right now. From the county, swimming pools can only open for first responder training or physical therapy use right now. These are public swimming pools. It doesn't deal with private backyard swimming pools. Let's see, phase 3, which is June 8th through the 22nd. They can open if distance is maintained between all individuals and groups, avoiding groups larger than 45. And one of the guidelines is you must maintain 36 square feet per swimmer. I can't remember what the calculation is on that. I know Chris had sent some information to Beth on what the square footage was. That includes water space and deck space. Clean, sanitize, and disinfect equipment, frequently touch surfaces, enhances the cleaning schedule. Appropriate staff should wear PPE and wash their hands frequently. Patrons are encouraged to wear PPE when it's safe and comfortable. And then reinforce frequent and proper hygiene with signage. And then on June 23rd is the phase out where there would be no restrictions. One of the things that in managing the different guidances that come out, they still recommend for pools you follow the KRPA guidelines.
What you read off is basically the KRPA guidelines.
Well, the KRPA guidelines are pretty close. They're a little more specific. They talk about or encourage work and wash your hands. Let's see is this? That's phase 3. Yeah, phase 2 closed. They're pretty similar. But
I mean, I was looking at it as you were talking, and I
Yeah.
didn't realize that wasn't what you were reading off of.
yeah,
So even though this has been relinquished to the local communities and local governments, they're still suggesting these are the guidelines that are in place that you should follow. And you're talking about wearing PPE and no more than 45 in a group and maintaining distance and all of that.
this has been to the county government, not to the city level, to the county government. And to the county health department specifically. The challenge becomes, we can open the pool tomorrow and not follow a dadgum thing. But if we're not following a dadgum thing and someone contracts COVID, then they're gonna come back to the city and say they got it here. Whether they can prove it or not is a whole different issue. But I think it would be, the challenge becomes when there's guidelines out there, while it may not have the legal force of law, an attorney representing somebody is going to go to these guidelines and say, you are members of this organization and you failed to follow these guidelines, and the city attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, you were negligent in not doing so.
The Tort Claims Act does have a couple exceptions. We talked about that last
Yeah.
time. But it does not protect you against gross negligence. If someone found this to be grossly negligent, then there could be potential liability.
Is there a definition of grossly
It
negligent?
depends on the day and who you're talking to.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
Well,
But that, we're just talking about though for those 2 weeks, right? Because then phase out, there's no restrictions.
That's correct, yes.
so should we prepare for phase out time for the 23rd?
That is for you as a group to decide. I mean, the original, when you were going to open, it was to look at starting up during phase out.
Which is roughly what, June, would you say again?
Be June 23rd. I can tell you it takes a minimum of 2 weeks to get the pool open. I mean, to get it washed, get it filled, get the water properly treated, get everything set out. So, we're looking at the 15th, well, not even that, really the 16th. So it does, I mean, if you want to open, I wouldn't recommend opening before the 23rd. I mean, it'd be 1 week that we have all these procedures in place. We'd be bringing in people to educate them. For the proper PPE, it includes things, not only masks, but they have to have a special whistle. And we'd be looking at just $800 in PPE for lifeguards for 1 week if we opened when, could have the pool ready. And I haven't talked to Chris in terms of, okay, what jobs are we pulling the water guys off of to get the pool ready?
The fortunate part is they have kept the pool clean in anticipation of the plan maybe changing. So, I mean, there's not a lot of additional cleaning that would need to take place. But yeah, it's 2 weeks minimum to get things up and going and get everything stabilized, so.
Did
Right
Beth send
now-
out a letter to say we're not going to open the pool, so we're going to try?
Yes, and so I want to give Beth the opportunity to reach out to make sure that we can staff appropriately also. We probably also make some other changes. Probably would do pool parties, look at not doing season passes, but doing punch cards and daily fees. Because we're going to have a shortened season, we're just setting ourselves up for the argument of, well, why are you charging that when we're only, I mean, it just makes more sense to do punch cards or daily fees. I've talked to Beth about it in anticipation that this might come up this evening, that if you know, if we open early, like during phase 3, we need to look at, because of the sanitation requirements, right now, when everything's normal, we're 50 minutes in the water, 10 minutes out. Changing that to 40 minutes in the water, 20 minutes out, and that 20 minutes out is you have a certain number of guards maintaining the appropriate social distancing, also the rest of the guards doing the sanitation that needs to be done to keep that in place. So, you know, also if it's during a phase where we have to maintain social distancing, we haven't figured out whether we need 1 or 2 extra guards on deck, because you want the guards in the chairs focusing on the safety of the swimmers and less on social distancing. So there you would need to have extra guards on the deck enforcing the social distancing piece of it if you go before an unrestricted
But you only
time
need 1 week, I mean, there's only.
Yeah, and so we,
Really, it's kind of, I mean, you just go to, if we were to do it, it just would not make sense to open before the 23rd.
Yeah, for simplicity, I think that.
I would agree.
Stuff.
well,
Especially since-
you know, and plus, you know, we don't know how many of the guards have gotten another job. What if we need to secure more guards? That would give Beth 3 weeks to get that done instead of, well, less than 3 weeks, because still have to do the training before the season starts, but gives her more time to get that in place.
Well, full disclosure, obviously I'm getting a lot of pressure on this issue in my household, and to be honest, I'm in an uncomfortable position at this point where my daughter is thinking about getting a job at the pool in McPherson. So, how do I, you know, how do I articulate what just happened in that scenario? So, I am interested in being able to answer this, and I think, and I wish, I really did feel a little confined on our last discussion. I wish we could have been in person. I think we could have had a more robust discussion, but I am a little bit, I feel like I can easily justify, if we get to June 20th and we say, we made the call as we saw it at each point in the process, and unfortunately, there were only 5 lifeguards available on June 20th, and so we can't, I can explain that, I mean, and that's easily articulated and understood, and that's the way it goes. More so than the situation that we're a little bit in right now, where it's articulating the reason is a little bit.
The other part of this that, and we don't know, and I did talk with Glenn Sippis today about when the schools are going to open. And we know a lot of universities are going to open August 1. And there are kids in Manhattan that are trying to get into their apartments now because, for one, they just want to do something. But the other is supposedly their classes are going to start. And I know that was a concern for Beth. It always is. At the end of the season, who's going to still be here? Because we're going to keep the pool open until, what we used to do, the middle of August to the 3rd week in August or something. Well, now, if kids go back to
Is that
school.
being communicated by the state schools, that August 1st is possible?
That's what I understand.
I think the scenarios that the schools are looking at are all, I shouldn't say all over the place, are varied. I mean, from starting early to, I mean, you know, you've seen, I think the first university to come out and do it was Notre Dame, saying, starting August, no fall break, we're going to be done at Thanksgiving. Several universities and colleges have adopted that model. I think that's one of the options that school districts are looking at. They're looking at a normal school year, or what has traditionally been their historic school year. I think they're also looking at is, how are we going to, if we can't meet in person, how are we going to beef up the engagement of students so that we keep them moving forward as opposed to regressing in their education? Because when you talk to many educators out there, a lot of students disengaged along with their families the last 3, 4, 5 weeks of the semester. So I know from the school districts, not just ours, but many, they're wanting to get those students back in the classroom because they're concerned about the education of children not moving forward but slipping backwards. So, you know, I think they're going to consider every scenario they can to get them in the classroom. Is
I
that
think
fair?
that's one of the parts of the conversation among council last time when they voted to not open the pool was, excuse me, there are so many unknowns, and you just, I mean, it's, and for Beth, she said, I really need to know. I need a decision. And see why I've gotten 2 calls about the river.
So if some of these other places are still closed and we open, then surely someone from Salina would drive down here to lifeguard. You'd think that there'd be an abundance of lifeguards available.
Well, for instance, lifeguards, you have a certification, you have to recertify every so often. There's not a lot of opportunities to get recertified, and if I remember right, it's Wednesday night. The closest place to do it is Bennington. So if the pool you were looking at was going to be closed and you're one of those that need to be recertified and you don't get recertified, we can't hire them. I know there's several on our roster that we're going to need to be recertified that won't be able to lifeguard. How many, when I say several, I don't know whether that's 3 or 6 or 7. But you know, it's, and then who's found other jobs or just quit looking at it is a whole other issue. I mean, but going back to Rebecca's point that, okay, let's say on the 20th, we only have 5 lifeguards, well, we drain the pool, don't open.
Is it worth the effort to go in and clean, prepare the pool, and fill it, and then come June 20th, open the gates and let it all back out?
Well, I mean, maybe you reverse that. If there's no lifeguards on June 8th, you don't fill, I mean,
Yeah.
but
How long does it take?
It takes about 3 days. And that's 250,000 gallons of water you're talking about. If you fill it and it doesn't work, you just turn around and dump it. It's a big waste of water unless you know you're really gonna go.
well, absolutely. I mean, I would make your go, no-go before you fill it. But
And it seems like we have plenty of time to figure that out, given that it's 20 days away.
I just don't see what's changed since we made the decision last week. I mean, just because some of the regulations in the state, we still have no idea what's gonna happen with COVID. Stuff is just now opening up. It could just explode everywhere from the lakes opening up last week. I don't know what's changed, so I'm not exactly sure why we're spending more time on this, but.
Well, for me, if there's no restriction after the 23rd,
But what does that mean? I mean, I get technically what it means, but it still doesn't really, it's decisions that people have made that actually not a whole lot to do necessarily with health versus what we were legislating on in the first place.
well, except that there is less than one, I mean, there haven't been any new cases in McPherson County, and I don't know the specifics out there.
There was a new one, the release today. I'm sorry, Rebecca.
Well, no, that's okay. But, and again, I'm not necessarily advocating that we for sure, I'm not, but I do want to be able to articulate, because it is a little bit hard for me to justify in my mind why it's okay to start weightlifting at the school. And again, we could say, well, that's just because the school has different standards than we do. I mean, but I just at least want to talk through them, because I also am not convinced that, I recognize that there's the perception that these indoor events, you can use social distancing and stuff, but I'm just not so sure that the facts of that are that that's a lot safer. You're talking kids, you're using shared paper and utensils and all of that stuff. And there are much fewer regulations around outdoor activities. Generally speaking, outdoor activities are safer. So it's just a little bit hard for me to be able to get my head around why the pool was a no and all these other things are okay. And I don't so much, at the end of the day, say I'll be disappointed if I walk out of here and we don't decide to open the pool, but I would like to be able to articulate in a logical, fact-based way how we came to that conclusion. And if it's money, that's fine. I'm actually fine with if it's money. If it's that with the narrow amount of time that the pool can be open, it's just not, and the other hits on the budget, it's just not a responsible thing to do. That's fine. Or if it's that we just don't believe that from a public safety perspective, things have changed enough to warrant that or whatever. But I just want to have a little better feel because I don't quite feel like I know what that is right now.
Wasn't a part of
Context
it,
the other thing.
I mean, the way I see it, part of it is looking at numbers of people going to a certain location. And I'm not trying to downplay any of these other activities, Beth Scott, but how many people will sign up for needlepoint? How many people will sign up for origami? My guess is it's not going to be 46 to 50 people in a room doing that.
We are limiting class size to 15 at most.
Okay, so there we've already taken that into consideration, limiting to 15. Yeah, at the pool, we're going to have to limit the numbers somehow. Whether there's a guard at the front, you know, you got so many people in there, boom, you don't come in. I mean, like Walmart did. But I guess at the end of the day, I'm comfortable with the decision we made based on the information we had. And time is getting very short on changing that particular decision. I was a lifeguard. I lifeguarded in 5 different states, different locations. So I mean,
Are you
I
still
know.
certified, Rick?
What's that?
Are you still certified?
No, but don't even bring up the speed. That's how many years ago that was. So I mean, I understand. I mean, that's how I made it through school and what I did. I lifeguarded. So I mean, I understand that aspect of it, but I guess at the end of the day, to articulate to somebody, the decision's been made. I'm willing to stand by the decision I helped make. It was a tough decision, but I'm going to stand by it. I think it was the right decision.
I wasn't there, sadly, but I probably would have voted no at that time, but I'm never afraid to reevaluate and change my mind. Anymore, I'm feeling like a lot of what we're fighting with is just a freedom of choice. Do people have a freedom of choice to do what they want to do or not? And as we start getting closer to this phase out point, we're running into a scenario where people are going to have a lot of choices to do a lot of things that are far worse than going to a pool. I just don't think it's right to deny them that choice at that point in time.
I think part of the discussion the last time was also that we are putting a lot of responsibility on a bunch of high school kids about cleaning, about just the whole protocol of all of it. And that was a concern. That was a concern. And it's not so much getting, once you're in the water, it's out of the water. And the bathrooms, and the snack bar, and the lifeguard stands, and the slide, and any surface that people are touching. You're supposed to be doing stuff constantly. I don't know if Beth ever got to the point of figuring out how many people that would take to do all those wipe downs and
Or could all those still be required in the phase out after June 23rd? And the same with the numbers, would we have to limit the numbers after June 23rd? As of today, things don't change.
The only thing they recommend in phase out is that you post signage encouraging hygiene. Numbers are not limited. They ask you to encourage social distancing, but not necessarily to enforce it.
I mean, are we deciding because of the financial impact, or are we deciding because of the safety impact? Because I think I'm still confused too. What is our, for me, it was financial before
for me originally, that was my deciding factor as well, prior to the vote.
So I see what we're already projecting here. I'm not sure what this would cost to open the pool on June 23rd. How that would change projected numbers.
Well, the pool for 2020 was projected to be a $40,000 loss, if you just looked at it as a gross margin standpoint.
That's fairly normal, right? That's not like a,
No, I mean, when we paint the pool, that's usually $35,000 to $40,000, or if we resurface the slide, it's, $15,000 to $20,000. Then we have higher expenditures in those years, but that's pretty typical anymore on the pool. About $40,000 expense over revenue.
that's still what we would anticipate.
Well, we'd have some labor savings not being open for June. If we didn't do pool parties, we'd save some money there because we pay overtime on pool parties to get people, or not to get people, to get staff to work it. Otherwise, they don't want to take the time to do it. Then we have some that are committed to doing it, but the problem is we also have to balance actual 40-hour week overtime with what we pay. The short answer is no, we wouldn't incur as large of a loss. What that loss is, I don't know. I really don't know.
So that it wouldn't be, you don't anticipate it being a larger loss?
No, I don't anticipate it being a larger loss.
For me, to Mark's point, financially, that certainly played into, my thought process. But I think more importantly is my decision was based around what Becky referred to, and that was putting kids in charge of trying to maintain social distancing in the water, out of the water, keeping things clean, and that just seemed like a nightmare to me. If after the 23rd, there's really nothing that has to be administrated besides putting some signs out and recommending good hygiene, I'd be willing to revisit that again, to open it after that period.
I think it's worth taking a look at. I think there's very few things that we talk about as a group that really gets people talking in the community. Most of the stuff we do kind of just, improving radios and stuff doesn't get a whole lot of interest. I can name a couple things right now that's gotten interest. I won't name them again, but the pool has been one of those. Probably the top 5 in the last couple of years that I've been here that has garnered a lot of conversation. And again, I went out, it started to feel like normal to me again. I mean, it's just like, I think we've been locked up enough. I read reports that locking people in their houses didn't actually do anything. And being outside is actually great. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if I believe any of it anymore. I think people have to choose. If you go to the pool, we don't open the diving boards. You can swim back and forth in laps. We don't open the slides, so you don't have to clean the slide. I mean, we'll probably have to make some restrictions, but.
But at the same time, keep in mind our playground is open.
Right.
Which doesn't have chlorinated water flowing over it all. So again, I'm a logic person. I just need the logic. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just want to understand the logic behind that.
Given that we're in a other category, is this a category where people can initiate a vote?
Yes. Yeah, you're in a formal council meeting, and you can initiate motions and votes. In fact, in my opinion, if you're wanting to make a decision on this one way or the other, either overturning it or reinforcing the decision from the last meeting, particularly if you're wanting to go you don't have to take any action if you're wanting to stay the course. But since you took a formal action last meeting to close the pool, it's going to take a formal action to order it open. Am I correct on that?
That is correct. I think you need to specify the date you can open this to tie it in with the state requirements.
say, hey, we should open, and then everybody has to scramble to find lifeguards all over the county, you know, that's a great idea. But there should be at least a date that says, okay, we can't afford or receive this amount of lifeguards.
I guess, can you make a motion with the understanding that it would only follow through, assuming that there are enough lifeguards?
I think that's what you did last time in reverse. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you can make a decision. You could vote tonight, as Greg said, that you wanted to reverse your decision and you plan to open the pool on June 23rd. If by the 15th, Beth is unable to find enough lifeguards, you can re-reverse yourself. Doesn't necessarily help with the utility people filling the pool. Is, you know, it takes 3 days to fill, but it also takes a while to get everything
Well,
right.
get everything stabilized and go.
Chemically right.
Yeah.
If you waited until after the 15th meeting, would that be enough time?
Not really, no. It's 2 weeks, basically.
If Beth communicated with you 2 weeks prior to that, that'd probably be the best scenario.
I guess I'm not sure what has precipitated this, other than we've all gotten phone calls from people that are disappointed. I agree with that. I mean, I don't think I go any place that somebody doesn't say something to me.
I have
Nobody
people
says,
who are very supportive of this decision, every single person I've talked to.
everybody, when I talk to them, because they all say, oh, it's all about money. And I said, no, it's not about money. It is not about money. We're trying to go through the regulations and adhere to what the health professionals are telling us. So I said the decision was made on that, with that information. It was not about, well, we're just trying to prop up our budget. That wasn't it. But saying that now, for all of you, we do have a problem with our budget. We do. I mean, we do need to be watching our pennies and nickels and dimes and all of that. So that is, but that was not, I don't believe, the impetus for the decision that you made. These are hard decisions, folks. I know they are. And I also think it's and I don't disagree with what you're saying, Emil, as far as, you know, you're willing to revisit a decision and new information has come forward that makes you think, okay, we can know all that, now let's make a different decision. But do you know anything more today than you did 2 weeks ago when you decided to close?
Well, I wasn't there, so.
Well, okay. But does
Say
anybody
that
else? Do you know, do you know more?
I don't really know anymore, it just feels different. How about that? Like, if I can go to Walmart and grab supplies off the store and put them back, or, I mean, just, have you done with the department store? I mean, there's restaurants opening up. I can go into a restaurant now and sit down and eat. That feels very different. I talked to people today in New Jersey, they can't wait till someday that they get to think that again, because they're not allowed to do that there. It just feels different here, that if we can go to a park, or we can go to Walmart, and we can't go to the pool. Again, we've talked about every reason why we can't do this and what all the negatives are, but I seem to think there could be some things that give people something. People need something to look forward to right now, and if we could open the pool on a date and limit it and then not just kill the budget, I think we would be, I'm with, you know, if we can't find lifeguards, we can't find lifeguards. If we can find lifeguards and we can close the diving board and we can close the slide, we don't need to anymore, I guess, it sounds like. And put signs up, I'm going to listen.
And I would agree with limiting or not having pool parties and those things. I think we're gonna have enough challenges with staff if we're able to do this at all, the way it is, to exclude those and not have parties, but I'd be in favor of revisiting it. If we could open it after the 23rd, have an idea that we'd had staff by the 15th, and, you know, no later than the 1st of July, or whatever.
Well, you say revisit it, but for that to happen, we pretty much have a vote
Yes.
now.
You're
Yes
gonna
and
have
no.
to say,
We have to have a decision.
the season, the pool will be open from this to this. And if school does start the first week in August, public schools as well as colleges and universities. Okay, then, so,
Has the school district set a deadline on when they're gonna make that decision?
it'll come from the state, and Glenn anticipates the beginning part of July before they're gonna know. Is that what you've heard as well? So,
What does that change if it starts August 1st?
huh?
What does that change if it starts August
Those
1st?
are all lifeguards.
They would like,
We struggle with lifeguards in August the way it is.
I mean, they.
Sports activities start up, we close, even before school starts, in August, we mainly open on weekends because we don't have any guards during the week to man the pool. I think we were scheduled for the 16th, I'm not looking at a calendar, somewhere is a weekend there that scheduled to be the last day of the season. But I think the week or two before that, we weren't going to be open during the week because we can't staff it.
One thing to think about too, I don't know what the percentage of pools that are gonna be closed versus the ones that are open. But if we're one of the few that are open, I can see that being the point where everybody's gonna come to, and it's gonna inundate the staff that's already probably gonna be fairly stressed. If you're trying to limit the amount of people that can get in, or if you're not limiting them, they can all get in. Just something else to think about too, if we're one of the few that could be a problem as well.
I think Marquette's been talking about that as well, because they were planning to open. And they were coming up with some kind of idea, like charging $100 if you're not from within city limits or something crazy. Like, just because they have to find some way to keep 1,500 people from showing up. But I think that's a totally separate discussion.
Bill, let me ask you a question. If somebody says, well, I'm from Kansas City and I want to go swimming, we can't say you can't go swimming.
No, I think you could put whatever reasonable rules you wanted to on this. I mean, it is a municipal pool. If you wanted to restrict it to Lindsborg residents, I think you would have the right to do that.
Which is just another level of,
So have the CVE put out, we don't want any visitors. That'd be great to do with them.
My understanding, Kenwood Cove is not opening for the season, is that correct? City of McPherson Water Park, the decision is going to be made next week on whether they open or not. We have already discussed, limiting who can attend, trying to enforce that, administer that. You could say, okay, well, anybody that doesn't live in Lindsborg, well, what mechanism are you going to use to do that? Because if I live in Smolin, I can bring a piece of paper that says Lindsborg, Kansas 67456 because it's the same zip code. Or what about, let's say, Bill is a grandfather, his grandkids come to visit, they want to go to the pool. Are we going to let Bill and Carol into the pool and not their grandkids because, well, they don't live in Lindsborg? You could base it upon the school district. The school district goes almost all the way to Salina, into Ellsworth County, 3 miles south, and then basically to the Marion County line. How are you going to enforce that? I mean, if we're going to put limits, we need to put a limit on the number of people are in there at one time. And then you talk about, okay, we're going to have X amount in for an hour, that hour's up, that group leaves, another group comes in, but it's on a first come, first served basis. I don't know